Hey, everybody, welcome back to Black Lotus Live, where we talk about all things strange and unusual. And today, we don't usually talk about conspiracy theories. We do once in a while, but, it's pretty rare. And even rarer is when we speak about religion. And I want you to know up front that if you happen to be a religious person, a Christian person, or something like this, this may not be the show for you. However, we have a special guest with us today. His name is Micah Dank, and he is the author of the. Suddenly lost my train of thought. He's the author of the Into the Rabbit Hole series, and the first book I know. It kind of it has been compared to Dan Brown's. Davinci Code, which is about, cracking the code of the Bible. And the Bible is thought to have been written by elitists to control the masses. And anyway, we're going to let him talk about that today. Micah, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome.
I think my first question to you is, what prompted you to write this?
Well, in about 2013, I had moved to Boston. I'm from Long Island. And I moved to Boston.
Right.
I had moved to Boston for a new job. And moved there with someone who I'm no longer with. And when we were there, the iPad had just came out. So she'd be watching TV and I'd be on the iPad going down rabbit holes. And I came across this one. It's called Astrotheology. And it just kind of blew my mind. And I just spent months and months just studying it. And then eventually, when I had learned enough, I started being able to decode on my own some of the things. Now, I have a presentation. Am I able to share this?
Sure.
Absolutely, man.
All right, hold on. Let me try this.
Are you still living in Massachusetts today?
No, I'm back in Long Island.
Ah, okay. It's not too far away. A stone's throw, if you will.
Right. So, do you guys see this right here?
Not yet.
There we go.
You see the full page?
We can see the top of the page. If you scroll down, we can see the rest of it.
No, it's good right there.
Okay. All right. So this is astrotheology in the Bible, which is basically talking about the zodiac signs, okay, and the mythology behind them. So we could start with the Lascaux caves here, which go back 40,000 years. What these were these caves in Lascaux, France. That's why they're called the Lascaux caves. And people went into them, and they went deep into them. They explored them. And when they went to the back of the wall, they saw something like this, which is basically in the top, you see the bull, you see the many faces of the lion, and you see the horse at the bottom. In astrology, the bull is Taurus, the lion is Leo, and the horse is Sagittarius. So what they did was they carbon dated the wall, and it came out to about 40,000 years, plus or minus 5,000 years. But what they did then was they brought an astronomer with a computer, because we have the capabilities to do this now. And what they did was they rewound the sky back 40,000 years, and they basically printed out what they saw, and they superimposed it over this wall, and the constellations lined up perfectly. So we've had working knowledge of the zodiac for about 40,000 years. Now, how that applies to the Bible, there's questions you can ask. How Jesus was able to heal the blind, how he walked on water, how he turned water into wine, why he had 12 disciples, why he was betrayed with a kiss by Judas, why he was dead for 3 days, why it's his birthday on December 25th. Okay, all this can be answered in astrology, which we will do. So Genesis 1:14 says, "Let lights appear in the sky to separate the day from the night. Let them be signs to mark the seasons, days, and years." And that's basically what the Bible is it's an encoded version of this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the 12 signs. You guys still see this, right?
Right.
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Aquarius is the first sign that I talk about is Aquarius, which is represented by the man with the water pitcher. So anytime you hear the words son of man, man, baptism, because this is how you baptize someone, man with a water pitcher. Fountain, stream, river, pond, lake, things of that nature, water-related things, you're talking about Aquarius. Then Pisces is a sign of the two fish in the water, so it's another water sign. So whenever they're talking about Leviathan, fish, water, they're talking about Pisces. Then Aries is the ram, and in Aries you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day, 12-hour night. It's also the Passover, or the passing over of the sun over the equator and back on its way to its height in the summer solstice. In Christianity, the passing over is changed and called the resurrection of God's son. Now, you both have Passover and Easter, okay, in Aries, which starts the year. So whenever you hear ram, lamb, shepherds, ram's horn, Jews, the Jewish people are the people of Aries, whereas we're the people of Aquarius right now. So that's why the Jewish people used to blow the ram's horn to the sky during the high holidays. So whenever you hear those words, they're talking about Aries. Now, Taurus is the bull, and when you look at the sky and you see Taurus during the season where it's supposed to be, you know that you need to put the plow on the bull so that you can plant the seed so you can harvest in Virgo and Libra. So whenever you hear bull, ox, calf, cow, they're talking about Taurus. Then Gemini is the sign of the twins. It's Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. It's the story of Achilles. So whenever you hear twins or brothers, they're talking about Gemini. Then Cancer is the crab, and it's the sideways moving creature. So what the sun does is, starting on December 25th, it rises a degree on its axis. It continues to rise a degree every single day. Each additional day, it rises an additional degree. The days get longer until June 21st, which is the summer solstice. Then for 3 days, it walks to the side. It basically stays at that height, okay, for 3 days. Then on June 25th, it lowers a degree, okay, and it continues to lower a degree every day until December 21st, which is the winter solstice. The winter solstice is December 21st, and the sun doesn't rise above the horizon, okay? So the ancients used to say God's son was dead. And then for 3 days, like in June, it walks sideways, so they used to say God's son was dead for 3 days. That's where that comes from. So whenever you hear crab or beetle, they're talking about Cancer. And the reason it's beetle is because in the ancient Egyptian zodiac, the crab actually used to be the scarab. You actually get the word crab from scarab too. Then Leo is the king. He's the lion. He's the king of the jungle. And the ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So whenever you're talking about lion, lioness, cub, you're talking about Leo. Also with Leo, whenever they're talking about the kingdom of heaven is near, or the kingdom of heaven on earth, it's a metaphor for the sun being in Leo, because the sun rules Leo. It's in its rightful home. Then Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. So remember before when we said that you plant in Taurus? Well, the virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make the bread for the year. So whenever you hear virgin, wheat, woman, grain, seed, barley, they're talking about Virgo. Then Libra is the justice. It's the scales, it's the balance, it's the just one. And the reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter, into cold, into death. The Jews always celebrate their new year around the fall equinox. So whenever you hear law-related things, because he's the justice, he's the judgment, law, judge, justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, lawly things, they're talking about, or courtroom things, they're talking about Libra. Libra is also wine season. So basically, when you plant in Taurus, you can press the wine in Libra. The grapes in Libra make the wine. So anytime you hear wine vineyard, wine press, that's it. Olive oil is also made in Libra. You press the olives, they're ready in Libra, and you press the olives to make the olive oil. So there's a lot going on in Libra. Then Scorpio is the scorpion, and he is known as the betrayer. When a scorpion bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. And it's why the mafia has the kiss of death. It's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss. There's 12 disciples. They each represent one of the zodiac signs. Judas is the betrayer. That's why he betrayed him with a kiss, because that's what Scorpio does. So the sun is judged in Libra, and it's betrayed in Scorpio, and then finally in Sagittarius. This is with the bow and the arrow. Shoot the sun and inflict further punishment on the sun. And we went over this. In Sagittarius, you have December 21st, which is the day of death. Anytime there's a day of death, they're talking about Sagittarius. So whenever you're horse, bow and arrow, spear, horseman, death, they're talking about Sagittarius. And then finally you have Capricorn, which is the goat, because he likes to climb the mountain. The goat climbs the mountain better than anyone. If you've ever seen a mountain goat climb a mountain, it's a metaphor, because the zodiac, Capricorn's at the bottom of the zodiac wheel, and if the sun rises a degree a day every day, you can picture it walking alongside the zodiac. It basically starts to climb up the mountain. So that's basically the 12 signs. Do you guys have any questions or anything?
Well, so it seems to me that it's basically like a farmer's almanac.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a farmer's almanac. We're going to get into that a little bit more too. But that's basically what it is.
So, yeah, guys, do you have any questions about this?
Some of my questions might get answered just if I wait.
Well, I find this is very interesting because obviously we've had, many biblical texts in various forms and revisions throughout history, and yet we all had an idea that, we were misinterpreting that text. There might be something more metaphoric or symbolic about it. And so far, Mike, I really enjoy what you're presenting, and I think that there is probably some serious grounding in what you're finding. Now, the question certainly that sits in front of us is, how do we implement this particular knowledge, knowing what it is now in our everyday, moving forward, and how does that impact religion the way that we understand it with those who follow the Bible in more of a verbatim fashion?
Well, we're going to go into it a little bit more, but what you have to understand is that to read the Bible literally is not how it was meant to be. Before 325 AD, when Constantine united everybody under Christianity, the ancient Christians were known as Helionostics. That was their name before then. And Helios in Greek means sun, and Gnosis means knowers. They were sun worshippers. They were just basically pagans. Nothing has changed. Okay, you're not supposed to take the Bible literally. Okay, it's basically all this information is as I show you how it's decoded, is just basically a placeholder to show where the signs are, what the properties of the signs are, things of that nature. There's no reason that the Bible has to be some transcendent book. It's basically just a farmer's almanac, which I'm going to get into in a little bit if you want me to keep going.
Yeah, I
Please.
also had a point I wanted to bring up. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. I'm enjoying listening to you, getting to know you better. And the cave drawings you showed in the beginning, there's actually a whole movie made about them called The Cave of Forgotten Dreams. It's a documentary. It's really good. The other interesting thing about those caves is that I think they may be the oldest writing we have of any humans.
Yeah.
And the last cool thing is that's the first writing we have of humans in that cave in France. But the other thing is that that's the first instance of a animal human hybrid we have. So in the cave there is a drawing, I think, of about half animal, half human, which is persistent throughout human history, even if you look at hybrids, alien hybrids today. But that idea has been with us for a very long time.
Well, the idea too is you have to understand is that the sun in this cave on the summer solstice, June 21st, and only on that day, the sun would shine into the cave and bounce off the back of the wall.
Right, that makes sense.
It was only on that day. So, but yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, this is the oldest thing, and it's the most important thing. It's the most important thing because if we reverted back to like hunting and gathering and this and that, finding God, who's God, what religion is right, is so low on that list. You need to know how to survive. You need to know when to plant, because you got to remember they didn't have calendars, watches, smartphones, any of that stuff. They had like sundials. Okay, so basically they had to know when winter was coming. They had to know when they had to see the bull in the sky in order to plant. If they didn't plant in Taurus, the crops weren't going to be ready at the end of the year to basically make the bread and the wine,
Right.
Which are the symbols of Christianity. They had to do this, so it's basically just an embedded information, and they encoded it because absolute power corrupts absolutely. And basically, this was the earliest knowledge. We had to look at the stars in order to make sense of our universe. And the sun tells the time of the day, the moon tells the day of the month, and the zodiac tells the month of the year. It's a perfect calendar, and we needed time to understand that.
At what point, in your opinion, did things sort of change over into the more literal interpretation of this text?
After 325 AD, and then you had all the um, the Crusades, you had all that stuff. Pretty much around then.
Well, I think Constantine had a lot to do with that.
Yeah. Well, there's also, it's kind of like up in the air whether he physically united everybody under Christianity or if he was baptized on his deathbed. It's kind of up in the air, but what basically happened was Christianity became the law of the land at this point. And it became, the further along we go in time, the more people take this book literally. Like in no other circumstance would you take a book literally that talks about talking donkeys and talking snakes literally, or being swallowed by a whale, or a great fish, they say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a whale's throat opens 15 inches. You know, you can't fit a human through that.
Right.
You know, but it goes back to that thing. He was in there for 3 days. You know, it goes back to the 3 days thing. So if I continue with this, you know, there's names for Jesus that the church gives, okay? There's nicknames for him. When the sun is in Capricorn, Jesus is the sun. When the sun is in Capricorn, he's called the scapegoat of Israel. Capricorn is the sign of the goat. When the sun is in Aquarius, he's known as the son of man. When the sun is in Pisces, he's known as the fisherman of men. And it's also why he feeds the masses with 2 fish. When the sun is in Aries, he's the Lamb of God. When the sun is in Leo, the lion, he's the Lion of Judah. The lady holding the stalk of wheat, Virgo, he's born of a virgin, and he's called the bread of life. Libra is the scale of justice. He's known as the just one. You know, he's betrayed in Scorpio. He dies in Sagittarius on December 21st, and it's also why he's worshipped on the sun day. Okay? So these are all church names for him.
Right.
You know, and they just coordinate with the zodiac. That's what it basically does. Now, look at this picture of Jesus on the left. This is a stereotypical cartoon image that you'll find of him. Okay? The sun is always behind Jesus because he represents the sun. Every time you look at a picture of Jesus, you'll see the sun behind him. Sometimes there's a cross on the sun. The 2 fingers up like this are an ancient Kemetic peace sign. And by Kemetic, I mean Kem, which is Egypt. Okay? This right here, this peace sign, this is a British Victory War sign. Okay? The fingers are separate. This is the true peace sign, which is why you have pictures of Jesus. You have pictures of Satan, Lucifer, Baphomet. All of them holding the 2 fingers up. They're telling you they're peaceful. That's what they're doing. The white Jesus picture is actually a guy named Caesar Borgia, who was the bastard son of Pope Alexander VI. Before then, there was no picture of him, and it was decided that his picture would be the face of. Everybody wonders where Jesus gets his face from, where that look. And it's from this guy, Caesar Borgia. His father, Rodrigo Borgia, bought himself his way to the papacy. He's part of the elite Borgia family. And what happened was when he was pope, around the same time the printing press came out. This was in the mid-1500s. So what basically happened was he decided to take his son and make him the face of it. Okay? Now the crown of thorns wrapped around the heart on the outside, and every picture of Jesus has the heart on the outside. The crown of thorns represents the rays of the sun. Okay? And the heart outside represents the human toroidal field, the torus field, which is a 6-foot electromagnetic chemical gradient that extends outside of your body 6 feet. Okay, if you were to look at it, it looks like an apple, the way that the thing comes out. And it's why the elites try and keep you 6 feet apart. Now, is because you're not able to connect with one another. You know, if you ever had somebody come up behind you and you know they come up behind you, they just broke your toroidal field. That's all they did. You're not psychic or anything. That's all it really is. Now, this is a picture of Jesus on the left. This is Caesar Borgia on the right. You guys can see the resemblance, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So now, if I start decoding phrases, have you heard of Proverbs 16:18? Pride comes before the fall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can one of you guys describe it?
Well, I think it basically means that, you know, if you're too prideful, you know, you're going to fail.
Right. That's what they take it as. However, do you know what a group of lions is called?
A pride.
Exactly. A group of lions is called a pride. Pride is the lion. Lion is Leo. Leo is in July and August. That comes before the fall.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Okay.
Interesting.
Now, 5:2. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come from me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times. However, Bethlehem in Hebrew is a combination of two words, Bet, which means house, and Lechem, which means bread, so the house of bread. This is Virgo with the wheat stalk, the virgin. So they're basically encoded saying the Savior will come from a virgin. Okay? This is Micah, who predicts that Jesus will come from Bethlehem. Okay? Bethlehem is two words, Bet and Lechem, which means house of bread. Each zodiac sign is called a house or a mansion. In the Bible, they say, in my Father's home, there are many mansions. Mansions, house, signs, there's word for them. But basically, the house of bread. Okay? Now, I've basically given you guys all the code words, so I'm going to go over one that has a lot in it. Okay? Here's Deuteronomy 32. He gave them honey from the cliffs and olive oil from the rocky ground. He gave his he gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. He gave them lambs and goats. They had the best rams from Bashan and the finest wheat. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. So you see all these signs, how they're in there?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay,
Right.
There's two other ones too that I italicized. He gave them honey from the cliffs. In the sign Cancer, there's a group of stars called the Beehive Cluster. It's an asterism. It's a closely knit group of stars, much like the Pleiades are, the Seven Sisters. So the honey comes from the Beehive Cluster. That's in Cancer. The butter and the milk are milk-based, which come from the Milky Way galaxy, okay, which they knew about back then. The Milky Way galaxy centers in Sagittarius. So from your land from Cancer to Sagittarius is the land of milk and honey that they speak about.
Ah,
Wow.
interesting.
Mount of Olives. Jesus led his disciples to the Mount of Olives after his last Passover so that he could teach them a few more things, pray, then wait for Jesus to betray him. While walking to the Mount of Olives, he gave the parable of the true vine. So follow me on the zodiac wheel on the left. Passover takes place in Aries, which is on the left. Where right after that, they walk to the Mount of Olives. Olives are in Libra. Those are opposing signs. So you walk across the zodiac from Aries to Libra. They're in Libra right now. And they're waiting for Judas to betray him, which happens in the next sign over, the connecting sign Scorpio. Now, while they're waiting in Libra, he gave the parable of the true vine or vineyard or wine press. And wine is basically in Libra too. So you see how this is encoded? Do you see how this starts to work?
Right.
Right.
Okay, you're always going to talk about cross signs or neighboring signs. That's basically the code in this. That's how you know it was done this way. Okay, and you'll see some more examples. This one, Revelation 4:7. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. The first living creature was like a lion, Leo. The second living was like an ox, Taurus. The third had a face like a man, Aquarius. The fourth was like a flying eagle. In astrology, the scorpion is the belly-crawling creature. It's the lowest form of life on Earth. Its evolved form is the eagle, which is the highest flying form of life on Earth. So the eagle becomes Scorpio. Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio are the four fixed signs of the zodiac. There's things like mutable signs, cardinal signs that have their own meaning. Fixed signs are fixed because they're fixed in their season. Leo is the dead of summer. Taurus is the dead of spring. Aquarius is the dead of winter. And Scorpio is the dead of fall. Now, you look at the zodiac wheel, Lion, Leo, Man, Aquarius, those are opposing signs. Ox, Taurus, Eagle, Scorpio, those are opposing signs. It makes an X through the zodiac wheel. Okay, so that's what that phrase meant when they said that. It wasn't just a creature with four heads. You know, these are just metaphors for the solar and the constellations and such. Revelation 12. A great sign appeared in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. A woman clothed with the sun is the sun clothed in Virgo. It's just a metaphor. That's all it is. If the sun is in Virgo, the moon will be at her feet. So the zodiac is 12 signs, okay? We have 24-hour day clock, so the sun spends 2 hours a day in each sign. It's just math. Okay. If the sun's in Virgo, that's roughly 4 to 6 p.m. The sun is still out. So if the sun is out, the moon will be at her feet. Whereas if the moon was out, the sun would be at her feet. These are just metaphors. Another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous dragon. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. On the left, you see the constellation Draco, which is the dragon. Its tail goes from Aries to Sagittarius, which is 4/12 of the sign, or a third of the stars out of the sky. This is just star poetry, guys. Do you see how this is starting to like reveal itself a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I've given examples of astrotheology in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. I've been accused of cherry-picking verses from the Bible to prove a point. Let's take a much longer passage and see if we can decode it too. Now, are you guys familiar with the book of Job?
Well, when I was
Right,
younger. It's been a long time since I've looked at the Bible. Sorry.
That's okay. Can one of you guys just explain to your listeners what the story of Job was, basically, who he was and what his deal was?
Well, he was accused of being God's favorite. And so God made a deal with the devil that he could take away all of his prosperity. And then, he said that he would still worship God.
Right. Yeah, that's basically what happened. Now, it's important to know that the book of Job is actually the oldest book in the Bible. It predates Genesis. Okay, it was put in order it was either in 100 AD during the Council of Jamnia or 325 AD. I think it was 100 AD, to be honest with you. We can get into that a little bit later. But basically, the book of Job. Ready? Job 38:32. God says, this is God's response to Job when he calls out to him. Can you lead forth the Mazzaroth? The Mazzaroth is the zodiac. That's what it means. That's just point blank translation. The Mazzaroth over time becomes Mazalot, which survives in Judaism today as Mazel Tov, and you know how old that word is good luck or good fortune from the stars. So the Lord's challenge to Job. He says, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Those are obvious star metaphors. But then he says, can you bring forth the constellations in their season or lead out the bear with its cubs? The constellations are the zodiac above, and the bear and its cubs are Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, part of the Big Dipper. Who can tip over the water jars of heaven? That's Aquarius, the man with the water pitcher, who's tipping it over. Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions? That's Leo. Who provides food for the raven? That's the constellation Corvus, which means raven and borders on Virgo. Do you watch where the doe bears her fawn? Mariga, meaning deer, is located in Orion. Who let the wild donkey go free? That's Acellus Borealis, which means donkey and is located in Cancer. Will the wild ox consent to serve you? That's Taurus. The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully. That's Lambda Achille or Al-Thaliman, which means two ostriches in Arabic. Do you give the horse its strength? It laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. It does not shy away from the sword. The quiver rattles against its side, along with the flashing spear and lance. That's Sagittarius with the bow and arrow. Does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high? That's Aquila, which is the Latin name for eagle and is a constellation a few degrees above the celestial equator. Finally, he says, can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook? And Leviathan is the fish god, so that's Pisces. So you see how this is all just encoded?
Right.
Yep.
You know, this is his response to him. You know, if you were to read this literally, one might take it as, you know, where did all your animals go? What happened here? You know, what happened to the donkey? What happened to the ox that you had? But in reality, this is just encoded star metaphors for what they had. Now, answers to questions at the beginning, how Jesus was able to heal the blind. Well, if he is the Son of Man, the living flesh, the man comes up to him and Jesus puts his fingers on his eyes and suddenly he can see. However, the sun does the same thing too. The sun is down right now, so it kind of took away your sight. But when the sun comes up in the morning and touches your eyes, suddenly you have sight again. So how he walked on water, you know, everybody's seen a sunset on a lake before. Yep. How he turned water into wine. So do you guys know why God is considered a man and Earth has always been considered Mother Earth, a woman?
No.
It has to do with God's sacred fluid, the rain from heavens. In Hebrew, the word is shemen. We get the word semen from it. It's the sacred fluid. So God's sacred fluid pours down on Mother Earth, and from her belly, vegetation and life and food and fruits and such grow. So that's why he's considered a man because of the rain, and Earth is considered a woman because she gets pregnant.
Well, that's actually an old pagan theory,
Right.
or metaphor.
Right. So basically, you have Taurus, which is when you plant, right? April, you see the bowl, you put the plow in the bowl. April showers bring May flowers. That's Taurus. It rains and rains and rains. And then at the end of the year, you pluck the grapes after they've grown with help from the rain. And then basically, you turn it into wine. That's how you turn water into wine.
Got it. Got it.
All right. So why he had 12 disciples. Each one of the zodiac signs represents a disciple. Why he was betrayed with a kiss by Judas, we did that. Why he was dead for 3 days, we did that. Why is his birthday on December 25th, we did that. So you see
What is the significance of Mary Magdalene?
the significance of Mary Magdalene? Well, we can get into that a little bit later, but basically, Mary Magdalene, it's the name Mary. It's the name Mary. If you look at the glyph, I don't know if you know what a glyph is. The Virgo glyph, it's an M with a Jesus fish attached to it.
Okay.
Okay, so basically, you have Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, the Virgin Mary. You have Jesus' sister Mary. You have, in the Egyptian times, you have Isis Mary. Okay, it was Isis Mary, Meri. It always starts with an M. It always starts with an M. So that's the significance of that. So it doesn't stop there. It's not just random passages in the Bible that can be decoded this way. We're going to go through the entire book of Matthew to show how deep this runs. The book of Matthew. Notice I've put zodiac wheel and sections to circle so that you guys can follow along. Repent of your sins and turn to God, for the kingdom of heaven is near. Each gospel begins at one of the 4 major points of the zodiac and ends at one of them as well. The 2 solstices and the 2 equinox, when connected, form a cross. This is known as the cross of God's sun. The kingdom of heaven is Leo, whose ruling planet is the sun. This is the only sign that the sun rules over. And the closest day to Leo is June 21st in Cancer, which I've highlighted. So that's where this gospel starts. Then this is the firmament between Cancer and Leo. It's the beginning of the kingdom. There's a saying in the Bible that says the firmament shows God's handiwork. The firmaments are dividing lines between the signs. The firmament is not a dome over a flat earth. The firmament is some people call them handover dates. Some people call them cusps. There's different words for them. But basically, the firmament is the handover dates. There's 3 days that the sign hands over with another sign. So the next passage, Matthew 3:4, John's clothes were woven from coarse camel hair, and he wore a leather belt around his waist. For food, he ate locusts and wild honey. If we take the most famous drawing of a man, Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and superimpose it onto the zodiac, we can make sense of this. Cancer being in the head is why he eats wild honey. In Cancer, there's a star cluster called the Beehive Cluster to produce honey. A little lower on the body is the clothes made out of camel hair, or Camelopardalis, which is in Gemini. So right now you have the head and the upper body so far. Moving a little lower on the body, you get his midsection, which is where you would wear a belt. Taurus represents the bull, and the female is the cow, which is where you would get the leather. Regarding the belt, Orion's belt sits between Taurus and Gemini. So next would be the baptism. Now, how are we going to go from the beginning of Leo to a water sign to signify the baptism? You would go across the zodiac. Cross signs, as I previously mentioned before, as they are known, are the signs opposite locations. For example, Aries and Libra are cross signs. This is very important. A sign's 2 most important signs are its neighboring signs and its cross signs. This is encoded in the book as well. Here we see how it makes a leap from one firmament to the other. The man with the water pitcher in Aquarius is personified as John the Baptist with the water. It's important to note, too, that John the Baptist and Jesus are always exactly 6 months apart. When you think about the fact that Jesus is born on December 25th and rises a degree a day, then that must mean that John the Baptist is born on June 24th and decrease a degree a day. This is why in John 3:30, John says, "He must increase, but I must decrease." It's also why St. John's Day is exactly 6 months to the day of the birthday of Jesus. The next story is the temptation of Jesus. So we are going back to the Cancer-Leo firmament of July 24th. This one is simple. So he's in the desert for 40 days, right, being tempted by the devil. So you're at July 24th. Just count 40 days. It takes you to September 2nd. That's right in the middle of Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk, right? So look at the next passage, the very next passage. Matthew 4:3. If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become loaves of bread. There's the mention of the bread, which tells you that the sun is in Virgo. The next passage, Matthew 5:17 and 22. I did not come to abolish the law, and if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. This takes place in the firmament of Virgo Libra. When you're at the firmament, it can be used on either side. It could be used to talk about bread, or it could be used to talk about what it actually is talking about now, which is law and judgment. Libra is the scales of law, who judges the sun before its descent into fall into winter. Matthew 7:9-10. If your children ask for a loaf of bread, do you give them a stone instead? Once again, this being the firmament between Virgo and Libra, it is switched back to Virgo. Matthew 7:15-16. Beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep. And can you pick grapes from the thorn bushes? The sheep are the ram in Aries, and the grapes are in Libra. Once again, they are opposing signs. So moving along, Matthew 13. Later that same day, Jesus left the house and sat beside the lake. This story now moves from Libra to the barrier between Aquarius and Pisces, as he is right beside the lake, or the two water signs. Its cross sign is the Leo-Virgo firmament. As it's across from Virgo, wheat stalks and the grains. Is it ironic that the next parables from Jesus are the wheat and the weeds, the mustard seed, and the yeast? Moving right along, next is the fishing net parable. So we go back across from Leo, Virgo to Aquarius, Pisces. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. Then Gemini is the sign of two men. It's technically twins. However, there's just a short mention of brothers in the next passage. He's just the carpenter's son, and we know Mary, his mother, and his brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas. This ends at the firmament of Gemini Cancer. How do we know this? Because the very next story is the death of John the Baptist. As I mentioned previously, death comes at the end of Sagittarius. The firmament of Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Gemini Cancer are opposing signs. So let's take a sentence which sounds like it could be in the Bible, but isn't, that I came up with. If I say to you, the rulers were divided between war and love, it split the land in half, you could read that as a literal translation, and many religious people would. However, the ruling planet of Aries is Mars, who's the god of war. The ruling planet of Libra is Venus, who's the goddess of love. There's your war and love. If you connect it, it literally splits the land in half, as you can see. They're all just deeply embedded metaphors. Okay.
Well, I was going to ask you, what is the? I can think of some, but I want to get your answer. What are some of the benefits of not writing a literal text, instead writing something in code that requires?
Well, that's because that's what elites do. That's what elites do. Is they encode things in secret societies and things of that nature. Okay. Only those who, Jesus says, those with ears to hear and eyes to see. That's not about following it literally. That's about understanding these metaphors. Okay, this is all about being able to read below the level. There's a story on the surface level that comes out, which is the literal translation. Then there's also the metaphors that I'm going through right now, you know, which is how it was supposed to be read, because that's what these books are supposed to be about. You know, it's why people encode things. It's to basically protect the information.
Gotcha.
So Matthew 14, 17, and 32, but we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. The bread is Virgo, and the fish are Pisces. Those are opposing signs, as I mentioned. Pisces is the 2 fish, which is why he fed the masses with 2 fish. This is the cross. Okay, so what you're looking at on the left, this is what happens when you connect the solstices and the equinox. Okay, it forms a cross. This is God's son's cross. This is the cross of God's son. We were just in Virgo, and now we're in Libra, which is law and wine, remember? What stories do we get now from Jesus? The story of the temple tax, the unforgiving debtor, divorce and marriage, and the parable of the vineyard worker. As you can see at this point, how things are encoded and also put out there plain in sight, just for you to be ready. Then the next, so we're in Libra, right? The next is Scorpio, which is the next sign over, the betrayer. This is where Judas betrays Jesus with a kiss. And then here's where Jesus is crucified on the cross. So you went from from Libra to Scorpio to Sagittarius. Okay? That's the book of Matthew, guys. And I only did the book of Matthew because it was the first book of the Bible. I could have really done this with anything, as you've seen.
So I have a question for you. I think we all understand how this works. And earlier I mentioned that it seems to be a deeper understanding of a farmer's almanac. Um, however, how does this lead to a conspiracy theory?
Oh, well, I'd have to read you. So would you agree that there's astrology in the Bible at this point?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Probably the most accurate representation of something like this that I've heard in way of detail and what appears to be evidence.
Right. Roman Catholic Catechism 2116. All forms of divination are to be rejected. Recourse to Satan or demons, conjuring up the dead, or other practices falsely supposed to unveil the future. Consulting horoscopes, astrology, palm reading, interpretation of omens and lots, the phenomena of clairvoyance, and recourse to mediums, all conceal a desire for power over time, history, and in the last analysis, other human beings, as well as a wish to conciliate hidden powers. They contradict the honor, respect, and loving fear that we owe to God alone. Now, why would the Catholic Church, knowing at the highest level that there's astrology or this is an astrology book, because they have to, whether you're talking about the Black Pope and the Jesuits, or you're talking about, I'm just a guy from Long Island. I figured this out. You're telling me that nobody else knows this? It's impossible. Why would the Roman Catholic Church tell you astrology is evil if the book is entirely about astrology? There's
Because
your.
they don't want you to know it.
Yep. There you go.
And if you ever went to, I'm sorry, what, Kim?
Is that because they've told you a lot of other things too that they didn't want you to really know?
Yeah. And when I was growing up, I would go with my dad's mom to church, and she was Catholic, but I was raised Baptist. And I noticed that they didn't provide a Bible for you. There wasn't a Bible in there. The only one that had a Bible was the priest and or bishop or whatever he was, and then he was reading in Latin, and so still nobody knew what he was saying.
Well, that's why they do that. That's why they do that.
Yeah, I recall seeing that the Catholics didn't allow the parishioners to even read the Bible. It was all in Latin, And so until sometime in the 50s, I think it was.
That makes me wonder. I'm not up to date with my Christianity. I used to go to a Baptist church and an Orthodox church for a little bit. But my question is, are there any current Christian sects or branches that are teaching the Bible in this method that you're teaching?
No, not that I know of. This is very occult and hidden information.
So not even the Gnostics?
Well, as I mentioned before, not to sound like a dick, I didn't mean it like that, but as I've mentioned before, the further along we go, the more people become zealous in the literal translation.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Everybody was a pagan back in the day. Everybody worshipped the sun. This is just an encoded version of that. Okay. Let me show you this real quick. Moses goes to the top, to the Ten Commandments, where he comes down and sees them worshiping a golden calf. I'm going to pose you a scenario. These Jews left Egypt supposedly, okay? They couldn't even let the bread rise. That's why there's matzah, okay? They couldn't even let the bread rise, okay? They ran out of there. Now you're telling me they took all this gold, went into the desert, waited for Moses to leave, found welding equipment in Egypt, in the desert, and built a giant statue?
Right.
Or if you look at this right here with the sun between the bull's head, the sun is gold, which is the sun, and the calf is the bull of Taurus. They were worshiping the sun in Taurus. They were worshiping the age of Taurus, whereas they were the Jews, the people of Aries. So Moses comes down, he sees this, he breaks the commandments, becoming the first lawbreaker because he broke the law. That's where that comes from. Now watch this. The ancient Egyptians used to worship the sun in Taurus. Hieroglyphs of the bull with the sun between its horns on the left. The Jews are the people of Aries. This is why they blow the ram's horn to the sky on the holidays. Now, the Christians are the people of Pisces. This is why they have the Jesus fish as showed below. This is also why Jesus is able to feed the masses with 2 fish. Now, look at the middle of this. You see this red thing right here? That's called the Vesica Pisces. That's the Jesus fish. John 21. So Simon Peter climbed back into the boat and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153. But even with so many, the net was not torn. The mathematical equation for the Vesica Pisces is 247 over 153. The ancients knew all this. They hid all this information, okay, because this is the most powerful information. This is life. This is how to live. This is how to live if you go back to hunting and gathering. I mean, these people are barely out of the food chains. We have machines now that can plow the land. You know, the bulls used to do that. That's why you used to see the bull in the sky. Okay?
Well, you're sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
I was just going to say this is very interesting because it's straddling the line of sacred geometry in certain ways, which obviously, you know, these people of long past had that information. Where they got it, we could, you know, have a different show on it. But nonetheless, they understood sacred geometry, and the Vesica Pisces, I'm saying it wrong, but this particular construct is apparently the first indoctrination of light that is expressed in sacred geometry. This first shape is where light comes from, and obviously we have the shape of our eye that may have something to do with it too. But even in the sacred geometry sense, the way that you're expressing this, I'm starting to wonder if some of that actually goes back and is referring to certain astrological principles, or if there's something deeper in there in the way of what you're presenting.
I am not saying that the Bible is only an astrology book. I'm just saying this is the astrology that I found in it. And it makes a pretty good case for it. I'm sure you could read it another way. Absolutely. Look at this. Ready? Look at this. Genesis 32:30. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I've seen God face to face and my life is preserved. Well, Peniel becomes pineal. Okay. This is the eye of Horus on the left. On the right, this is a sagittal cut of the brain showing the pineal gland and the corpus callosum. Okay, the ancients knew this. Okay, also in many Buddhist traditions, 49 days is the total mourning period, with prayers conducted every 7 days across 7 weeks. These Buddhists believe that rebirth takes place within the 49 days after death. And it just so happens that if you were to do a scan on a child at the 49th day of gestation, that's the day the pineal gland becomes visible.
Oh.
Wow.
Okay, so these ancients knew a lot more than you think. Now, this is a representation of Solomon's temple, okay? Now, as you see at the bottom, the cubits and everything, this is built to scale. Well, it's not built to scale, but this is you know what I'm trying to say. This is an even thing. Do you see anything interesting about this?
I see a lot of geometric shapes.
Okay.
This
is a view of Solomon's temple from above.
Patterns.
It's important to note that Solomon is not a name of a person. It's a combination of 3 words for the sun. Again, going back to the sun. Sol, or sun in Latin. Om, or sun in Buddhism. And On was the city of light in Heliopolis in Greece. On was the city of light. That's why when you go in a bedroom, in order to be enlightened, you have to turn the lights on. That's where that comes from. Okay? Solomon. So this was created using sex magic. Joachim and Boaz represent the testicles. The porch is the vase of the penis. The holy place is the shaft, and the holy of holies is the head. The ark, or the hole of the penis, is where the DNA information is stored. The store chambers represent the female wombs, and the 2 entrances represent the fallopian tubes where the eggs come out. This is just built with sex magic.
Huh.
Interesting.
And if you look at it now, I'm sure you could see that it looks like a rudimentary penis going in a vagina.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we did the Catechism. Now, how this applies in sports and in real life to this day. The Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix is the story of Christ the Sun, a flaming form of life that dies and rises from his ashes. Jesus was the sun who died for 3 days and come back to life. Well, what about the women's Phoenix team? The Phoenix Mercury. Mercury is the ruling planet of Virgo, the only woman sign. So how else are things encoded in everyday entertainment? 1990s movie Face Off, starring Nicolas Cage and John Travolta. What are the characters' names? Nicolas Cage's character is Castor Troy, and his brother is Pollux Troy. That's just Gemini. That's the names of Gemini. What about Travolta? His name is Sean Archer. The Archer is Sagittarius, the man with the bow and arrow. Those are opposing signs. Okay, so they bury this in things to this day. 1990s song, video for the song Cranberries. Here's Dolores O'Riordan, painted gold like the sun, and her headdress represents the rays of the sun, much like Jesus in the crown of thorns. But is that it? Here's the next scene. It's the golden sun on the cross that dies. There's your Sagittarius at the bottom, the guys with the bow and the arrow. The bow and the arrow kills the sun on the cross. Okay? So, yes, there are people that know about this stuff. There are people that know about this stuff, that embed this into everyday life. You know, this is more than real.
So why, if this is such secretive information and occult in its own nature, why go through the whole motion of even encoding this? Why not just keep it under lock and key?
Because they set up a duality where basically you're reading this, they want you to take this literally, because if you take this literally, if you were to take the Bible literally, what they want you to get out of it is that you are a hopeless sinner. You are not worthy to be saved. And the only way to be saved is to have total faith in Jesus, because that is the only way to get into heaven and to live your life by him. They keep you scared of hell. That's how you read it literally.
Absolutely. That's absolutely correct.
That's how you read it literally.
And that's how they control the masses.
Right. But you see how there's a whole other text under this? There's a whole other way to read this under this.
Right.
You know, that's basically what it is. If this were to come out, you know, people would not fear, they wouldn't have religious guilt anymore. You know, that's basically what it is. You know, and they count on people being ignorant and not finding this kind of information or putting in that time and effort to study this.
Why do you think it's not coming out?
I think
I'm trying very hard to push it to come out.
Yeah. I mean, you understand the faithful. I mean, you can't tell them anything different than what they believe. So I think that's what it is. And they've just been so programmed to swallow this hook, line, and sinker that if you present any other information to them that may be the truth behind the whole thing, they'll just, they'll
think it's sacrilegious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But Micah, there's a couple of other things I want to get into. But the first thing I want to talk about is the CIA's mind control behind all of this. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, do you think that the mind control thing has anything to do with this whole Bible code?
I don't think they're related. If you're talking about MK Ultra, my first book talks about MK Ultra.
Okay.
And what happens, which, I mean, that's a whole other topic. You know, we don't have enough time right now, I don't believe.
Yeah.
But
speaking of your books, let's get into that a little bit. Your series Into the Rabbit Hole begins with Beneath the Veil. Can you take us through that and let us know what it's about and how? I mean, we realize it's a book of fiction, but
what's truth in fiction?
Well, right. I mean, you've obviously done a ton of research on this, and you incorporated that into your book. But what is the book about?
The story of a guy who's a Harvard med student. He's a functioning alcoholic. And he's just kind of going through life. He doesn't believe in conspiracies. He has a best friend that does. And he gets a phone call from his mom saying that his brother, who was a Syrian Marine, or a Marine in Syria, dies under mysterious circumstances. They don't know if it was suicide or if he was killed. So he has to go to Washington, D.C. To get a medal from him because his troops are being recognized by the president. So he's going to get a postal medal. While down there, he finds an email that he overlooked. From his brother. He recognizes it's from his brother, but it's not his brother's email address. And it's this nonsensical thing. It's written much like the Bible is, in a way. You know, it takes a leap of faith to understand it. It's very grandiose, things of that nature. And then his conspiracy theory friend ends up finding out that it's a astrologically encoded cryptex. And basically what it does is it takes them up the chain of command in this giant conspiracy. And then by the end, my main character, Graham, he's no longer a non-believer. He becomes frantically obsessed with conspiracies after finding out his brother was at the heart of one. And that's basically it.
You have 5 books in this series, but I'm understanding you just released the 6th one.
No, the 6th one's coming out in like a week.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yeah. And viewers, I dropped a link to Micah's Amazon page where you can find all these books. So definitely check
I'm
that
on
out.
Twitter at Real Mr. Dank. I'm on Facebook at Micah Dank. I have a Facebook group, Micah Dank Into the Rabbit Hole. I'm on Instagram at Micah Dank. You can reach out to me, follow me, friend me. I sell signed copies for my house. Some people don't want to give their money to Bezos, and some people just want a signed copy. I'll sell hundreds of copies for my house. So,
and you have a website as well, don't you?
Yeah, it's micahdank.com.
Okay. Yeah. What do you do at that website?
Not much, honestly.
I mean, do you keep a blog there or anything like that?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. Okay. But can people reach out to you through that? Can they contact you?
They can reach out to me through social media.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Guys, do you have any other questions for Micah before we get out of here?
Well, one of the questions that I was having, and I'm not sure how to ask it really, but my thinking is going. We were talking about how this is a kind of like a farmer's almanac, basically. But I'm also thinking about how the pagans would do their worshiping and so on. And it sounds to me like the pagans understood this from the beginning, or they
Absolutely.
and then
I go around
took
telling people that the Antichrist is literal Christianity. The Antichrist is literal Christianity. You know, you could say the Whore of Babylon is the Catholic Church. The Antichrist is literal Christianity to me, because you're not gonna raise your chakras. You're not gonna become enlightened. You know, it's if you take these stories literally, they're barbaric, and it's also a snapshot of the time frame that it was written. You got to understand, this is like the mixed fabrics and the shrimp and this and that. That's time frame. Okay. Back in the day, like shrimp and crab and all that, they were bottom feeders. They weren't. They were considered peasant food for the Jews.
Lobster too.
Lobster too, yeah. That's what they were. They were considered peasant food for the Jews. Ironically, nowadays we're eating them in luxury. But yeah, so they were. So I mean, it's just a period. It's a snapshot of the period of time. Okay, but I mean, the more you decode, I mean, I went through the Old Testament, the New Testament. I went through the Book of Matthew with you guys. You know, I've gone over the Book of Revelation. I've done the Book of Enoch. I've done the Enuma Elish and the Epic of Gilgamesh, which aren't even biblical texts, and they're written in the same way. Okay, so this is the code that they use. If it was just one book or one thing, I would say fine, but then you have to argue, why is it always opposing signs? Why is it always connecting signs? You know, why does this make an X when you do this? Revelation 4:7 with the four-headed animal. You know, the dragon in the sky with the virgin woman. You know, the tail sweeps a third of the stars out of the sky. Well, the tail is literally a third of the stars. You know, this is the ancients encoding their information, and it's all the same information.
This all took place during the Piscean Age, and the Piscean Age was all about rules and you know, structure and that kind of thing.
Whereas
what does the Bible say about now, where we've entered into the age of Aquarius?
Well, we don't have a new religious doctrine.
Well, what I'm saying is, does it mention anything about that when we do exit out?
There is a mention. There is a mention in the Bible of what was it? Was it Luke 22:16? I think. Don't quote me on this, but Luke 22:16 or John 22:10. I forget. It was one of those. Basically, the disciples are asking Jesus after he dies where they can go celebrate Passover, and he says, "When my time is up, you will go into town and you will see a man carrying a water pitcher.
Mhm.
Follow him to his house and you will set up there." Now, it's important to know, too, the man with the water pitcher, that's Aquarius. So he's saying, after I die, after the age of Pisces is over, you're going to go to the age of Aquarius and set up. But here's the thing, though. The ancient, men never carried water. It was a female job. It was a purely feminine job. Okay, so the men never carried water. So for him to say, go into town, see a man with a water pitcher, that's clearly what they're talking about. So there's a few mentions of the age of Aquarius. Like I went through, the Egyptians are the people of Taurus. The Jews are the people of Aries. The Christians are the people of Pisces. There's going to be a new people.
Well, right, exactly. I think that was my point to begin with, is that, during the Piscean age, it was all about structure and rules and this kind of thing, and not so much with Aquarius, and I think that we are entering, or we have entered in an era where we have more open minds about things, and we are becoming more esoteric, and so, yeah. And I kind of wonder where Christianity is going to fit in that. I mean,
it's not. It's not. In the next 1,000 years, they're going to fade like the Jewish people did.
Right.
Like the
exactly.
Egyptian people did. They're going to fade.
The churches are already losing parishioners. So, yeah. Micah, it has been fantastic talking with you. I love the amount of research that you did into this. I don't think a lot of people understand this kind of stuff, especially the way you do. But I think we are going to get out of here for the night. Again, thank you very much for being with us, Micah. Viewers, don't forget to hit like and definitely subscribe. And when you subscribe, hit the little bell and then hit all, so you'll get the notifications whenever we do this, because it's not like a normal video on YouTube. It's a live presentation. And so you will get the notifications before we go live if you hit that all button. But also, I want to remind you that we've yet to be monetized on YouTube. However, if you like what we do and you want to support us, you can become a Patreon or a patron rather at Patreon. And you can also, and it's only like $5 a month. It's 16 cents a day, and you get extra content for that. And if you don't want to commit to month after month kind of thing, we also have a page set up at Buy Me a Coffee. And I think the minimum amount there is like $5, but you can donate anything, and it's a one-off thing. It's not a monthly commitment. But anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, keep thinking and question everything.